The Kentucky Wildcats with a monumental task coming up this weekend, going to Knoxville to take on a top 5 Tennessee team. We got Kevin McGuffey on the line from Last Word on College Football. We would ask that you would like the video, share the videos out on social media, subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football. Check out Kevin's work as well at Last Word on College Football. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Mark, how you doing? Just an easy game on Saturday for Kentucky. Should be no trouble. Yeah, right. A big time test on Saturday, and I think the team seems to be they're ready. They're up for the challenge and ready to go. And Kentucky can do to Tennessee what Tennessee's done to Kentucky twice in the last 4 years. If you go back and look in 2018 and 2021. Kentucky had a really, really good chance at a Peach Bowl bid and lost to Tennessee both times. The Citrus Bowl obviously is nothing to sneeze at, but when you're talking about one of those, New Year's Six games, honestly, those two losses probably cost Kentucky a bid to those games, and now Kentucky can kind of try to turn the tables and possibly not saying totally take Tennessee out of the playoff, but could definitely put a dent in their chances.
Kevin, how healthy is this Kentucky football team?
They're getting better. Honestly, this bye week probably couldn't have come at a better time. If you go back and look, Will Levis he had missed the South Carolina game, and of course Kentucky lost that one. I think if Levis is healthy, relatively healthy and plays, Kentucky wins that game. But can't go back now. He's had a bad case of turf toe, is what they were calling it, and then he also hurt his shoulder his left shoulder in the Mississippi State game, and went out for a little bit, and then came back and played really well. He's Stoops said he's still dinged up, but there's no reason why he shouldn't play on Saturday. A couple of the other guys, Tavion Robinson, had been banged up. Jeremy Flax on the offensive line, for anybody who, of course, has followed Kentucky at all this year. The big blue wall, it's painful to say, but that's been one of the biggest I don't want to use the word disappointment, but that's been one of the biggest struggles this year. That line, who we've all gotten used to, just opening up those holes. Kentucky ranks as one of the worst teams in rushing yards this season. When would you ever think we would say that? But anyway, Jeremy Flax should be back on Saturday. So they're getting there. One guy who will not play is Jaquez Jones, their star inside linebacker or middle linebacker. He's still dealing with a foot injury, and Stoops said in the press conference earlier this week that he definitely won't play this week, probably won't play next week against Missouri, and then he said we'll see where we are after that. So, but it didn't sound very encouraging. So De'Aaron Jackson will play once again. I think this will be his third straight start at that linebacker position, and he's done a really good job filling in for Jones. But other than that, I think Kentucky is pretty about as healthy as you can be, I guess. 8-9 weeks into the season right now. So like I said, things are trending upward. Like I said, Levis, they said he was still in a sling at one point, but I don't see any way he's not playing in this game on Saturday. So with so much at stake and so much going on, so
yeah, Kentucky's 2-2 in the SEC. They of course did not have Will Levis for the South Carolina loss. They took the Ole Miss game down to the wire, thought what would be the game-winning touchdown pass, had issues the final 3 drives, not moving the ball, but fumbling the ball in the red zone. So this team is awfully close to being 4-0 in the SEC and undefeated overall. And you bring up health, and obviously Levis, it's somewhat in question how healthy he is. He will go, but how healthy he is. And Chris Rodriguez comes back, and you mentioned the rushing attack not really being because of the offensive line issues, but also Chris Rodriguez's absence not being there to supplement Will Levis and to help him shoulder the load. But the last time out, Chris Rodriguez almost puts up 200 on Mississippi State. So it may be becoming a more balanced offense here for the stretch drive.
Absolutely. That is a very good point. You think about it, new offensive coordinator, Rich, Scangarello, this is Kentucky's 8th game, and this will only be Rodriguez and Levis have only been on the field together in 2 of the games. because Rodriguez missed the first 4 because of suspensions for various things that we've talked about in the past. And then, of course, then he came back for the South Carolina game, and Levis was out. The Ole Miss game. So basically, the Ole Miss game and then the Mississippi State game are the only 2 games that those 2 have been on the field this year. And as you said, he ran for 197 yards against Mississippi State. That second half against the Bulldogs is probably that, and the second half against Florida is probably the best Kentucky's looked this entire season. As you said, it's definitely a step in the right direction. Now we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens on Saturday, because as good as Tennessee is, they do have a tendency to give up a lot of yards. You can look back to last year, Kentucky gained over 600 yards against Tennessee, but still lost. And when would you ever, a Kentucky team getting 600 yards, but then not winning the game? But like I said, having those 2 back, and now that they've gotten some time to work together with the offense, I think they're definitely. I said this now, but I think it's definitely trending. I think they're trending in the right direction. Now, whether it's enough to beat Tennessee on Saturday, that's another question. And it pains me as a Kentucky fan and a person who writes about Kentucky football to say that, but it is what it is. You have to be really, really impressed with what Josh Heupel and those guys, what they've done this year. I mean, it's watching it as an outsider, an onlooker. It's just a fun brand of football to watch. And but we'll see where it goes. Tennessee they're 7-0, I think it is, first time since 1998. And of course, if you believe in omens, whatever, that's when the last time they won a national championship. Now, I'm not going that far, but I do have them in my playoff, for our bowl projections for last word. I have them as a 3 seed playing Ohio State in the we could call it first 1 to 50 wins game, maybe. So, but yeah. So like I said, but going back to your original point, a healthy Rodriguez and Levis on the field, and you throw in Tavion Robinson, and the offense is probably about as close to full strength as they've been all year. So we'll see. As I said it a couple of times, but we'll see what happens. That's why you play the game, and we'll throw out any other cliches you want to. So.
Tennessee's about a 12-point favorite, and they are at home. And of course, this could have been, without that UT Martin game thrown in there, a possible, if people believe in trap games, with the Alabama win and with Georgia coming up. But UT Martin obviously was a buffer in terms of getting them reset and giving them a bit of a week off, and then they can get into this Kentucky matchup, of course. The Kentucky defense, I see, is ranked top 15 in the country, taking on what is arguably, and you bring up Ohio State, I guess we could have an argument over the best offense in the country, but it's pretty much either Tennessee or Ohio State. You flip that around, though, and Kentucky's got a capable offense, and certainly better with Chris Rodriguez now toting the rock, versus a Tennessee defense that I don't know that I can get a complete read on it, because I'm not one just to look at the total offensive or defensive rank and just say, okay, they're 75th. That means this. I think there's a lot more to it. They're around 100th in the country in total defense, but they're number 8 against the run, and they are number 8 in yards rushing per attempt. So that should be quite the matchup. Right.
And I said, we could say that in any game, that battle up front, offensive line versus defensive line, whoever controls that portion of the game is probably goes a big way into winning that game. As you said, Kentucky under Brad White with the defense. I mean, the defense has been solid. He only gave up 22 points to an Ole Miss team that had been scoring, in bunches. And let's be honest, Kentucky should have won that game. Just failure in the red zones, failure in the kicking game. Ever since Brad White's been here, Kentucky, his defense has been strong every year. And considering how many guys they lost last year, they've been really, really good as well. Like I said, they will be without Jones, but Derek Jackson has done some really good things. You think about DeAndre Square at one of the linebacker positions, Justin Rogers, Octavius Oxendine up front. If those guys can get some pass rush, put some pressure on Hooker, he doesn't make many mistakes, but maybe, try to force him, try to get that bad pass in there, try to get some turnovers. Kentucky had been really good at causing turnovers the last couple of years. Not so much. I think that's another thing you have to do in a game like this. Try to force some mistakes and see, go from there. If you can force a couple of turnovers, get a couple easy touchdowns off of it, then your chances of winning are a whole lot better. And you won't have to hear Rocky Top 100 times as opposed to like 86 or whatever.
Or maybe Hendon Hooker's just due for a bad game. Maybe you can just cross your fingers and hope for that.
That's true. And you go, yeah, he really hasn't. And you go back, Kentucky's had experience playing against Hooker, because you go back to the epic 2019 Belk Bowl. Hooker was the starting quarterback for Virginia Tech in that game, and Kentucky did a pretty good job of containing him in that game. As we always like to go back and say that the Lynn Bowden game, where Kentucky led Kentucky on that epic drive at the end of the game for the touchdown. And Kentucky's had good success with it, and they actually they didn't do a bad job against Hooker last year, but it just seems like, I think this year the supporting cast around him is a whole lot better, especially with the receivers that they have, and it's just kind of built for that offense is just built for that quick strike, kind of like what Kentucky did many years ago with the air raid. It's kind of along those same lines. And as you said, maybe he is due for a bad game. You never know.
How good is the Kentucky secondary, considering how good Hooker is? Jalen Hyatt completely torched Alabama for 5 touchdowns. He scored another one last week. And Cedric Tillman may be back. That continues to be a mystery. He was Tennessee's best wide receiver last year.
Yeah, Kentucky secondary has held up very well this year. They've had a couple of injuries, but a lot of those, had some younger guys who have stepped up and have done pretty well. And this is going to be, they said it's going to be the biggest test that they're going to have. They've got to they can't let the guys get behind them. They can't give up the big plays. They can't do, but of course, sometimes Hooker, if you watch, they like to do those 8 to 10 yard passes, and then the wide receivers, then you got to make those tackles. It's up, the wide receivers will try to make the moves and get the big plays out of it. And that's another thing that Kentucky's got to do. They've got to tackle, basic football, got to hold on to the ball. Kentucky can't have turnovers. If they turn the ball over 2 or 3 times, then that's a recipe for disaster. But they've got to tackle, and they've got to keep those receivers from making big plays. And for the most part, with a few exceptions, they've done a very good job of that this year. So that's going to be another aspect of the game to watch as well, trying to limit Tennessee's big play ability.
We've got a Discord where you can talk college football 24/7, 365. Go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, sign up there, get my picks as well. And Kevin's picks are on there as well. We've got 19 media members that we get a 12-pack from each and every week. Kevin's doing a fine job. I believe your picks they're well in front of me. For some reason, I've saved all my good picks for my other picks, because I'm pretty proud that I'm like 37-19 the last 3 weekends against the spread. Mm-hmm. But in the 12-pack comparison against the media, I'm well down the list. Kevin, I think you're having a pretty good year.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Just picking the game straight up, picking against the spread, I will be the first to admit that I struggle with sometimes. So, but yeah, like I said, we'll see what happens. Like you said, it's a long season, and sometimes you just get lucky. You say, okay, I think this team's due for a loss, and you pick the upset, and it happens, or no way this team's going to lose, and then you get one right. So. But yeah, we still got plenty of time left, but I've got to work on my picks against the spread. Straight up, like I said, I'm doing pretty good. The other, I somewhere in the middle, I think. So of all the 19 media members that you have,
well, I just pulled it up right here. You're doing really good, straight up, 74-25, and folks, these are not gimme games. I don't throw Alabama Vandy games up there. These are the 12 toughest games of the week, the most difficult games to pick. So 74-25 for Kevin. He's got me by a good 8 games right there. And then against the spread, 52-47. you're not going to lose money in Vegas with
Right.
that. You're not going to win any, but you're
Right.
pretty much right on the line. 52,
Hey,
40, not too bad.
Sometimes breaking even. That's like if you go to Vegas or whatever, go to the casinos, you break even. That's considered a win-win right there.
You're there to have a good time. Sure.
Yeah.
Kevin McGuffey, last word on college football, where he's got his bowl projections that he changes and alters each and every week based on the results. So, where do we stand now?
Well, right now we've got.
Don't give away too much, Kevin.
Okay. Well, I'll do the playoff. They just, they just came out as we're recording this. So basically, I've got Georgia's the one still, Ohio State is a 2, but that margin is getting closer and closer every week. It seems like now Georgia looked more like Georgia. Of course, no offense to our Vanderbilt friends, but they looked more like Georgia against Vanderbilt last week. That's another game this weekend I'm very interested in, is the Georgia-Florida game, to see how they play against Anthony Richardson and the Gators. But then the other one I kind of gave it away already, but Ohio State and Tennessee, and that could be, I've seen other projects. Some people have Tennessee at 4. I don't see it. Like I said, I've got Georgia and Clemson, and I almost put Michigan in at the 4 this week. Just because of how Clemson played, that game. God, I can't think who were they playing on Saturday. Yes, thank you. Gosh, Syracuse. Yeah, and what a great season the Orange Men have been having so far this year. So I almost put Michigan in there, but I stayed with Clemson. So that's my top 4. And like I said, right now I have Kentucky playing in the former Outback Bowl. I think it's the Relia Quest Bowl or something is what it's called now. Whatever random corporate sponsor, and I have them playing Purdue. So, that's usually one of those Big Ten SEC matchups. And I was doing some research, even though Kentucky and West Lafayette, Indiana are only like 5 or 6 hours away, they've only played 3 times in history, and they haven't played since 1915. So I think that would be a fun game if it happens. Like I said, I've seen other people have had them, Liberty Bowl, Music City Bowl. I think Kentucky goes 8-4. I think they have a really good chance of going to Tampa, considering how well the Big Blue Nation travels, especially bowl games. You're going to say, "Hey, we get to go to Tampa in January. Heck yeah, sign me up." We'll probably bring 30,000 people, down there to Raymond James Stadium. So, but that's where I'm looking right now: Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, Tennessee. Then I have Kentucky playing in the Relia Quest Bowl against Purdue. So,
but in fact, of course, a lot of people watching us right now on your side of the side would be Kentucky fans who hope that you need to make a radical change to those projections next week and drop Tennessee right out of the playoff.
Yeah, that's if it happens, it happens, and I will be okay with it. If Kentucky does win, I think you have that. I think you have one of those New Year's Six bowls, back in play this year. If that happens, if Kentucky wins, Georgia, as much as Mark Stoops has improved this program so much over the years, I still think they're not quite there yet with Georgia. Before the season started, I thought Kentucky was a solid number 2 in the SEC East, and Tennessee is obviously, this year has done some great things. But yeah, I think if Kentucky were to lose, I think there's a chance you could put them. If Kentucky were to beat Tennessee, you could possibly even slide them into like the Orange Bowl or somewhere. Because I think Alabama is probably going to end up with that Sugar Bowl bid, but you do have the Orange Bowl. Like right now, I've got Wake Forest and Penn State there, but you could have another spoiler alert. But that's probably the shakiest pick of all the ones I have of those selection committee games that you could easily slide like a 9-3, Kentucky team or any other SEC team into that other bid as opposed to Penn State.
Kevin McGuffey, last word on college football, breaking down the Cats taking on the Vols in Knoxville. Kevin, we appreciate it. Enjoy the game.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for having me on again. As always, I really appreciate it. And please, if you have time, check out Last Word on College Football. Myself, as you know, along with a few other folks who work there, are always on with Mark, and it's very fun. lots of information and a very informative site. If you're a serious college football fan, you should check it out.